Let's do it.
Whoa. Whoa. Looks like it worked.
Yeah.
So let's see if it works on your end and we can start the show. So I know you're going to have like a little bit of a lag. For anyone that's watching, this is still our transition period from Instagram Live to YouTube Live. Chris is rocking out to our intro song.
Yeah. Looks like we're about 30 seconds to 45, 30 seconds to a minute.
Delayed.
Yeah.
But can you hear me on the YouTube Live? Awesome. So you don't need to monitor that anymore. We just had to make sure after last week, 2 weeks ago, our audio issue, we had to make sure that we had audio this time. So what I'm going to say is welcome to the Alternative Blacks Podcast Live on YouTube. Today, today we're struggling. It is the struggle bus before the 4th of July weekend. So we are struggling extra hard for some reason. I can hear my cat's food going off, so we got to figure out a better time for that to all happen. Maybe 6:30 is the time from here on out. But we will be talking about our brew day with Barrel and Flow. Our brew day with Love City Brewing for Barrel and Flow.
We're barreling.
Fucking hey, now we're flowing. I am Tyler, as always, with my wonderful co-host Chris, who always seems to have a crowler of some sort for an episode.
Hey, listen, man, it's what you got to do. You know, I don't have a foodery literally like 10 steps from my door. So.
Okay, so for today's episode, I did not get either of my beers from the foodery. So.
All right, what is that? What's the percentage now on that? Like down to like 95?
95, yeah, easily, if not 90. But today we'll be talking about our brew day. But before we get into any of that,
beer.
That's right. What you drinking, Chris?
All right, I'm drinking a crowler of a beer, as Tyler pointed out. This guy here is Lost in the Saws, if people can see it. Lost in the Saws by Cinderlands Brewing Company,
which is
out of Pittsburgh.
At like 5.3.
Yeah, 5.3. As you can see, it was filled today, so it's super fresh.
So I got I have your beer listed underneath here. You can't see it, but if you look at the live, it should say...
Ooh, I see it. I see it. Look how fancy we are. Production value. So this is really, like, Bresky's is really cool. It's up in Harrisburg. So you can choose how you want your crowler top to be. I obviously went with the lid to save the fizz. So you can do a lid top. You can just do the normal tab. And you can get fills of 12, 16, or 32 for yeah. And then they have regular growlers too that you can get filled. So they have a lot going on there. So I love it. I saw the second I saw Cinderlands, I'm like, that's kind of tangentially perfect for today.
Oh yeah.
Because Cinderlands, we went there in Pittsburgh last time we were out at Barrel and Flow last year, and it was a pretty dope time. Real good beer, real good food, real good people.
What sticks out for me was the food and the views. Like being down there in the strip, being on a rooftop is just nice.
Yeah, and obviously, like I think we met. Who do we meet there? We met a few people there because it was like one of those just kind of casual meetup type things after the conferences were done for the day. I want to say it was like was it Brew Brothers or our boys from Houston that Tyler seems to always remember but not remember their names.
You telling me that's not Smash Bros?
Not Smash Bros.
How do I get that wrong?
Oh, okay, the Smash Burger. See? No, but Pilsner, obviously, Pilsners are the way to go right now because it's hot. And this is obviously delicious. I might have had this. I need to check my Untapped at Cinderlands. That whole day was a whirlwind. So it's
What
hard to remember exactly.
the day that we kept trying to like run away from was a blur.
Yeah, exactly. This was before going to the bottle share.
This was,
This is pre the bottle share.
but after showing up and being handed like other half,
Wait, handed what?
other half.
Oh, other half. That's what. Sorry, I heard up their ass. So I was like, when we show when we got there and they put a hand up their ass.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's a free prostate exam. It's how we start off the any good
Men's
festival.
with Men's Health.
Uh, what would you
Hey,
rate this
right
beer,
there.
Chris?
Other half. What's that?
What would you rate this beer?
I'm right around like a 4.25 on this guy right
Okay,
now.
so that's
I
pretty high.
feel yeah, I feel like Pilsner's more than any other beer though. I'm usually right on with like the first couple sips that I have. That's kind of what I'm going to think of it. Just because I don't know. There's something like other beers might grow on me, but a Pilsner to me is like because it's such a lighter style. I guess I'm never gonna keep drinking it and go, oh, this is getting better because warm Pilsner isn't amazing.
So I don't know how we did this, but we both landed on a pilsner today, and I am drinking Love City Brewing Company's Smooth Tempo Italian Pilsner that's sitting around at 4.7. Um,
Mm.
it's an Italian style Pilsner, well balanced with no sharp edges. It features floral, herbal hops blended delicately with soft malt characters for a smooth drinking experience. And I don't know if you remember the Futuro.
I do,
Yeah,
but first off, who wrote that description?
it's a maltier Futuro. I see your mom jumped into our live on Instagram. Robin, we are on YouTube now.
Well, apparently not.
We are on YouTube for our lives. That's why you don't see Chris right now, because Chris is live on
Ah,
YouTube with us at Alternative Blacks Podcast at YouTube. And we'll go
wait,
live from there now.
put me behind a paywall? No.
Yeah. So this is very much like the Futuro that we are familiar with, that we gave out a lot of samples of. It has that floral note that is kind of light and refreshing with the Futuro, but it brings that breadier, malty, almost bready caramel type of note into it as well. So I think Smooth Tempo is actually a really good name for it. I don't know why they chose that name, but it does feel like a beer that keeps you on a smooth tempo for the day, right? Like you could
Yeah.
grill with it, you can do some yard work with it, clean the house. It is something that's meant to keep you going. All stops in the are on in our IG live right now as well, and just need to let you know, All Stop, that we are now on YouTube for our lives every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, which I believe would be 6 p.m. Chicagoan time, right? Or am I off there?
Chicagoan time.
Is Chicago one hour back yet, or am I just making shit up?
I think they're 1 hour, right?
Yeah.
They're central.
Yeah, but
right?
Subscribe to our YouTube. Do it.
Do it.
This is a pretty good beer. It's pretty solid. I might just drop it at a 4 rather than a 4.25. I think they did set out for what they wanted to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what it went out to be.
So,
I don't think it's like, I always struggle with this. It's nothing
well,
that.
I have a question for you then.
Yeah.
I have a question. We think of, well, if we're thinking of like Dock Street, right? So we know like a Pilsner kind of has more of that, like the Pilsner malt has a very distinct flavor, right?
Yeah.
A distinct cereal grain flavor. The Italian Pilsner to me is a little more like crispy, if you will.
And this isn't as
And it's
crisp.
kind of like a little less, a little more muted than say like a Czech Pilsner.
So yeah,
Like
this malt character comes out a lot more. It's not as crisp as a Futuro as you would expect. So I think for me that's the weird, like not the weird part, but it's where my expectations weren't met because of understanding what the Futuro is like, and you just using that as a really good solid base of a Italian Pilsner. I like it because it doesn't taste like it. It's that weird double-edged sword, right? I like the fact that it doesn't taste identical to Futuro, but I was looking for something that was going to be a little crisper, and that's where it didn't hit like a 4.25, 4.5. It's gonna be really hard for any Pilsner to hit a 5 for me. I give Pilsners like up towards that 5 range. If it's a double dry hopped Imperial Pilsner, which means it's an IPA.
Oh, well, if it's a Pilsner, then it'd be IPL, technically.
I'm going to jump off of the IG Live because I feel like that's slowing down my bandwidth a little bit.
No, I think that's me. I think my computer's being a computer.
Love that.
So we're just gonna have to deal with that at the moment. It woke up a little groggy today.
Didn't we all?
I guess I was curious because I wonder how many Italian Pilsners have you had?
You know what? This is the lovely thing about not being on Instagram. Is I can
you can look it up.
Pick up my phone here.
Look it up and look it.
And I can
zip it up and zip it out.
Zip it doody zippy da. Yeah, so if I go down to Pilsner, there should be a section for what type of Pilsners.
For an Italian Pilsner?
But they don't have it for, they have other, Imperial, German, and Czech. So I'm going to hit other and take a look and see if any are really descriptive. But I don't think they are, because like even Futuro here, which I gave a 3.75, doesn't go out.
Yeah, I guess that. So the real question I guess I have is what defines an Italian Pilsner as a sub-style? You know,
the only thing I can
maybe
see
the Futuro is just abnormally.
The only thing I see so far is that floralness is like really consistent.
Floral.
Anywho, I guess this is as good of a time to get into our topic for the day, which is our brew day at Love City Brewing Company.
Our brew day. Yeah, because I'm not having much better luck on the Italian Pilsner front. And likewise with the ambiguity of style, our beer.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. I didn't even think about when we were talking about all this. So the ambiguity of the styles, you know, we are creating a beer that, for marketing purposes, we're not really disclosing like or advertising the style it is, because we're kind of worried that it would be a deterrent for people to come out and try it, especially on a potentially hot day in August.
Yeah.
Do you see what's going on behind me?
Yeah, what is that? What is happening over there?
Someone send help. Like,
Yeah.
get out of here. All right. So the ambiguity. We are making a, what do you call it? Oh my God.
It is I got you. It is a Manhattan inspired strong ale, is how we would describe it. So you got if you're familiar with cats getting thrown across the room, then you'll be familiar with Tyler's maneuver there. If you're familiar with a Manhattan, which is your whiskey, usually a rye whiskey, your vermouth, and bitters, right? And then the Grand Hatton version would be to replace some of that vermouth with Grand Marnier, right?
Yeah, so
Add a little orangey-ness to it.
yeah, and depending on how you make it or who taught you how to make it, sometimes you are replacing half of the vermouth with the Grand Marnier, and other times you're just adding a little Grand Marnier to it. I found if you're doing it for like a coupe glass, you're already working with a finite amount of space anyway, so it's usually replacing the the vermouth with some Grand Marnier. Usually, orange or cherry is kind of the two additive flavors that are part of a Manhattan. You either drop the cherry in there, or you do some orange bitters and drop a cherry in there, or maybe some cherry bitters and drop like an orange peel, or any of that variation. But I ended up really enjoying plum bitters in it, and and because you had the Grand Marnier with the orange flavor already, you had the orange, you had the plum, and then I liked putting some smoked oak wood. Right, I would smoke the glass as I was prepping the cocktail, and it just created a richer kind of flavor. And so when we met, that's what the conversation was like. What kind of flavors inspire you? Like, let's think about cocktails. And we all, you, Hannah, and myself, all really enjoyed the Manhattan, and it was just an easy thing to go from. And we had, yeah, I think we had talked about it, about a couple different versions of drinks that we might potentially go after, and we weren't sure how adventurous they would be. And I think we were all excited when this is what we landed on.
Yeah, so I think we didn't really talk about this at all leading up to this because of just we've talked about the fact that we're going to do a collab beer and it's not going to feel real until it's like in the can.
Right.
But it feels a lot more real now that we've had this brew day. We haven't really talked about the very beginning of how do we come up with this. So I kind of want to get your take on that day, the planning of it. What were your thoughts on the whole brainstorm session we had?
So
are you happy? Well, I'm sure you're happy with what we landed on because
I am.
We spent the last 5 minutes talking about the inspiration.
The collaboration day, the inspo day, like the R&D, was nerve-wracking. Having been like, my job never has really been in these type of rooms. Has never been in like these type of situations where it's collaborating with another party in such a dynamic way, where we have to come to a complete agreement for what we're going to do going forward. They had more power this time than I'm kind of used to with being like in video production and everything, where we can agree on something, but then I'm recording, I'm editing, so it's a matter of like, oh, I can still kind of coax this into my direction, just because this is my editing style or whatever, right? So I gave up a lot of, I think, creative freedom in that capacity. But I'm sure if you listen to me talk for more than 2 minutes, you realize I have a roundabout way of getting from point A to point B, even though my mentor in my fraternity was Pythagoras. So you think I'd be more
Yeah,
about
but
getting.
okay, here's the thing about Pythagoras. Hold on, hold on. Here's the thing about Pythagoras, right? He had his own cult. Yeah. Who is Pepe Pythagoras? He he didn't believe, he only believed in whole numbers. He somehow has never like broken something in half or read his own theorem that we named after him, which necessitates fractions. But go off, Tyler. Just had to get that in there.
Yes, Pythagoras is an interesting individual.
Looks like the background show we're getting.
But yeah, so again, just to even prove the point even more, it takes me a while to get to my point. I think a lot of times I end up not being blunt enough with what I'm trying to say and trying to get to. And with this kind of collaboration and this opportunity where essentially we're not bringing much to the table other than the fact that we are black. It's
That's enough, damn it. It hasn't been enough. For 400 years, it hasn't been enough. It's going to be enough today, damn it.
Yeah. So besides bringing blackness to the table, we don't bring a lot of expertise, knowledge, besides just consumption of stuff. And so it was really cool to see, that they were excited for us to be hands-on with it and that we were going to have that opportunity to be as hands-on as we want to. That was a big thing to get out of it because it was about us learning, right? As much as, they bring in their expertise, they know how to put all this together. For us, it really was about, do we get to handle hops? Do we get to handle like the mash and everything like this? Like, what does that even mean? All those type of things were a really big part and crucial to this beer happening. So I think we went in with a lot of prep, and it kind of was a lot of prep that wasn't needed. But I think we were just so worried about showing up and not showing up enough.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And to kind of add to your point on the R&D side before we get into the actual brewing part of it, I think we didn't even know like what one of these brainstorm sessions looked like. And I think you're right in the sense that like I agree with, in a professional space, I've never been in the situation where I'm in like a think tank like that, coming up with something that's more a creative thing. Being an engineer, the think tanks for me are like, what's correct? Or what's the way that we can solve this problem logically?
Right.
And here it's more like, what's the funnest thing we can create? Okay, now, is that possible? So there, and then also, you don't know what you don't know. And I think that kind of hampered us for like maybe the first half an hour of this session that we had with them because we were like, we like an IPA or something. Oh, we like smoked beer. And it's like, well, we like a little bit of smoke. And it's like, okay, well, we'll back off of that. Don't bring that up again.
Right.
Stupid, why'd you bring that up? Like, it's kind of.
Right. It's like, we want to do a Roush. And then it's like, well, it's a little too late to do a Roush. We're just like.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were saying something like a Roush.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We know it's too late.
Yeah. We were just checking if you knew it was too late.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the feeling I had going into that until we kind of opened it up in terms of like, I think they were really good at just throwing ideas out there, and it's not a dumb idea or a dumb thought. And I think they were kind of also in the mindset, thankfully for us, we don't want to just do something safe or something ho hum, like, oh, here's another IPA that's just a slight variation on what we do already. Like they really embraced wanting to do something completely different than what they're normally used to doing for this collab. And I think that's probably like more so what I took away from it was, you know, people are excited to do different things from time to time and you know, take a leap on some things. And it's not always about what's, especially for like a one-off beer, it's certainly not about what exactly is going to be easy to produce and this, that, and the third. This beer has a lot of components to it, as we'll get into, and you know, I'm just thankful that they were so open to trying something new like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's 100% that. I think looking forward and going into like another collaboration, um, I don't think what we did prior was wasted time and energy. I think that was the right way of going about it. Uh, the person that could have checked us in a lot of this is finishing up her MBA program at NYU and working for a really big company, right? So the person that could have helped prep us, who has sat in meetings like this, wasn't just like available for us to like really review this prior to going in. She was there with the actual meeting and kind of pushed us along the way when we were stalling. But you know, I think that's a big part of where this is going forward and what future collaborations will look like. That being said, I think the real strong part about going forward with another collaboration is doing that pre-work that we did this time around, but actually just presenting it as in like, hey, you know, this is some of the things that we identified. This is where our branding is, and this is kind of where we point towards. And with identifying some of the beers that we recognize really standing out with you guys, we think a real opportunity for a collaboration beer exists within one of these three, you know, realms. First one being this for this reason, this for this reason, this for this reason. That would have been the best way for, I think, like for us to actually pitch it this time. But of course, as I said, me being long like around the way, I was like, well, in fact, indubitably, henceforth prior.
Thusly, we shall choose this Roush beer.
Right. So I think that was the big learning experience.
I also, just to add to the learning experience of that, was just the fact that they're like, bring food, bring cocktail ideas, bring beers, other beers that you want to try to either catch a spark off of or go in a direction of, and we can try to find something in that direction. I think that wasn't something that I would have thought of just off the cuff myself. And I really think that helped us kind of get an idea, right? Because obviously we ended up with a cocktail inspired beer, so that prompt was helpful in that.
Yeah. Sorry, I have like different thoughts on it all, but not thoughts that I really want to dive into until after we try the finished product. Because it could have either really worked out really well or it could have just fell a little short. From what we tasted, tasted up until this point, you know, I'm really excited. It feels like it's going to be really good. There was definitely a lot of sugar that existed within this beer that's going to be like really converted to this like high ABV, which I'm excited. But
yeah, basically what I tasted was
potential alcohol.
It tasted like sweet and hops, so bitter, sweet and bitter. So it's going to be interesting to see how those flavors develop.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
they dropped the plum puree in today.
yes, I saw that. Yes. So
Yeah.
very excited. So let's get into the actual beer itself then. So the brewing process, we're up early as shit. Walking over there I'm half dead. Alyssa's half dead. Tyler is as yeah, he's ready to go. He's like, man, I got my camera. I'm all chipper. I haven't even had coffee yet. I don't even know how you were that awake.
I told everybody it was like Christmas morning. I couldn't sleep the night prior. I was so excited to go. I thought I was going to be late. So I ended up actually driving close to where you were. And you were like, oh, you're getting your car, like you're getting to your car and then you're going to walk over. That's at least 15 minutes. Text me when you're close. I'm like, I'm here, bitch.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, yeah. And I'm walking to my car. I'm like, okay, the car's in the opposite direction. So that's going to be like 15, 20 minutes till he walks over here. And then 5 minutes later, he's like, I'm here.
I wanted to get there.
It's like, Jesus, dude, did you sprint?
I ran.
I wouldn't have been surprised based on how you were acting.
I don't know.
So
must have been coke in the air that night.
Anyway, it's funny, like the environment. You also wonder, in a place like this where it's production and like front of the house together, how does it feel when you're there for the production portion? And it's kind of like the way they do it is like it's split up, right? So it's like the first half of the day, all the production people are there just doing their thing. They don't have to worry about staff running, trying to take care of patrons in the front. They don't have to worry about patrons wandering back. They don't have to worry about any of that. It's just quiet and we're working. You know what I mean? And we're doing our work thing. And all the people who are on like the administrative side, finance, advertising side, like the business portion, they're all kind of just in the front doing their own thing on their computers, right? So I was like, that was kind of interesting to see. And then just getting into the production itself, right? So it's just like we've talked about doing our home brews, right? And having these little 1 gallon things going on. And here's this ridiculously massive mash tun. And we've never done all grain brewing. So this was like a jump of a jump.
Yeah.
Past like, the Gatorade cooler mash tun that
usually we're
you would
putting
use for
grain. Usually we're putting grain in like a sock and soaking it in some boiling water, or boiling water while it's soaking, and just being like, yeah. Take that bit.
Yeah, no, they have an entire they have like a little mini feed mill in the back that they grind the grain in and then pump it over.
Okay. I think like right now we need to humanize this whole process real quick, because we gotta deal primarily with Kevin and Melissa own it, run it, right? And they were there, but they were there to like monitor and not even like
they were doing their own thing.
Monitor their like Kevin's just been doing this for so fucking long that like if something like happened, he was like there just to catch the fall real quick. He was like a veteran dad, right? Like
he was kind of like that. It was like very calm.
Yeah.
Oh, this isn't working right now. Oh, let's try this. Right. Yeah, this will work out.
He's like, he grabs like this piece of equipment as it's falling. He breaks this piece of thing like when it's not working the right way, and he just it was just on it, and it was like, I think I got a pair of shoes for you, like that type of shit, where it's just like, damn, like
he's like he's like so nice too that it's almost like I feel like anyone else with the boot thing would have been just like, did you not read my email, or are you just taking artistic liberty? Like, what are you wearing?
Right. And then I would have
And he
cried.
was
I'm
like,
like, these were my best options.
yeah, and he was like, I think I got a pair for you in the back. Just
Um,
like extremely helpful.
yeah.
Um, and that's another thing that I've noticed though. It's just like him as an owner being involved in the process, but not being overbearing. He's kind of like just the support system, right? There to catch. It's a safety net,
That whole
while also
production.
helping with a lot of the handiwork, right? He's taking the forklift and moving stuff over around here. He's moving stuff out here. He's helping people with the hose. He was helping with the milling of the grain to go into the beer. Like he's
Yeah.
just a helping hand.
Monday was Juneteenth, so everyone had off for Juneteenth. So what that meant is their usual distribution of everything got doubled up onto one day. Usually it was a Monday, Tuesday sort of thing. So him running the forklift and everything was also him running out and delivering to all their distribution. So it was him and forget the dude's name because I'm awful. But they were working double time. And so that was cool just to see, like, it's not a, well, you got to get all this done, like, do it. It's very hands on. And I think that's really nice when you have somebody who's been in the industry for so long and worked at other places and then owns a spot. I think that it shows, that this person knows what everyone's going through and therefore isn't just like, well, this is your job, get it done. But to continue on the humanizing like element of this whole process, right? Where we're talking about the mill, we're talking about the grain feed and everything like that. We have Buffy, and they like. I think Buffy is a really good example of the imperfection sometimes in the best way, right? Because like the whole running joke with Buffy sometimes was, "Oh, you saw the grain that I left on the ground," like because of like tripping and falling, and again, where it could have been something that was embarrassing, especially on a collaboration day, and something that everybody like Kevin could have been pissed off about it, Hannah could have been pissed off about it. There was a lot of things that they're like, or like you have to have your shit together, and it just was like, no, this is what happens, right? And I thought that was a lot of fun, just the openness and willingness to share information from Hannah in terms of like a very technical side and allowing us just to be looking over the shoulder and trying to figure that out. Just to everybody else that was part of the process, Britt, with just even like simple shit with us like peeling and squishing oranges, right? And
yeah,
just
it was a lot of work, by the way.
Yeah, seriously. I think the best part was that reception that we received.
Yeah, I agree. And it's kind of that what we gleaned from that is it's like that two-way street of we were actually there to help. We were there to learn. We were there to be hands-on with it and actually lend a helping hand, whereas some collaborations aren't that. And I kind of, I take pride in being that, and I'm sure you do too. That's kind of what we're hoping. That's the whole reason we wanted to collab. I mean, we didn't have to we didn't have to do a collab beer. I think it's something that we just genuinely wanted to do, which is why we reached out the way we did to people for it, because we want to learn. And this is, I think, if you have a platform just in general for in beer and you want to learn, this is definitely like a nice way to do that, right? Because you get a brew day experience, you get as much as you want. At least Love City makes it appear that way. And I know that they are very, they generally do a lot of collaborations and they do a lot of, collaborations for, proceeds for donation and that type of thing. So this is something that in their business, they're just used to it, right? They always do this. So maybe, this is just a perfect match in that sense where this is just what they do, right? And it's just Oh, this is a collab beer. Cool. Let's do it. Oh, you guys are also helping. That's even cooler. Where maybe some other places that don't have that same collaborative structure.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the staff aren't used to people being in the back. Maybe it's not as spacious. Maybe, there's all these challenges that I think we just lucked out in being able to do it with Love City, that the way that they run everything and the way that their staff are used to uh, extra hands being there, I guess, just made this really easy for us to just go in and.
No, I agree. I think where I want to transition the conversation, I'm like the fridge is right here, so I'm gonna ask you this question and grab my next beer.
I have my next beer.
Is it the same beer?
Yeah, it's the same beer.
Okay, cool. I was like, because you didn't text me more than one beer, Chris.
Well, the only beer I have is this.
Oh, you did tell me about it though. It's the seismic sue.
Yeah, I forgot I still have a little bit left. So.
Damn it, Chris! This wasn't on the script.
We've gone off script. You know what? Destroy it all. Burn it all. We can't use any of it.
But shit. Oh, that's what I wanted to ask you about. So we were there essentially from 7 to well past 3:30, but like it was like 7 to 3 process. We probably didn't start till closer to 7:30, really getting into stuff, and it was probably closer to 2:30 where we really stopped, right? So 7:30 to 2:30.
Yeah, I want to say that I want to say in terms of them, the Brewers, their shift was probably 7 to 3:30, I would say. Yeah. Anywhere between 7 and 7:30 to about 3:30, 3:45-ish till they were done. Because we were so beat by the end of it, like all the cleaning stuff.
Well,
we were just.
And so this is where I want to like. This is where I want to like start you off with this conversation. Okay, so we were tired from what we did. Now, granted, it was Juneteenth weekend, and we engaged. We participated. So that aside,
we engaged and then we re-engaged.
Yeah, there was some fatigue there, obviously. However, it was a physically, mentally taxing day. But I want you to kind of run through the exhaustion and the fatigue that you felt going through this, and just kind of how that contributed to the experience of our first large-scale brew.
Okay. Yeah, so I think the thing that struck me was obviously is a very physical job, and I knew it would be. And what I mean by that is that we contributed in the full scale of the physical work that at a brew. Just watching the other guys and gals do their thing. Just what struck me is obviously you're pulling a hose that's still kind of full with liquid over here. You're dragging something over here. You're dragging bags of grain over here, over there. You're moving pallets. You're moving bins. You might hop in the forklift real quick and just get back to it. Like, it's such a physically taxing thing. Peeling fucking oranges, juicing fucking oranges. It's just like, juice, damn it. Juice, you ass. No, it's like what struck me the most immediately was just the physical work that everyone else was doing around us. people are running back and forth. We're going down here now. We're gonna go check on this fermenter down here. We got to run back here to make sure this valve's okay. Like it's not mayhem. It's kind of like organized chaos a little bit, but it's just like people are moving constantly, and it's physically taxing from that standpoint, I'm sure. And that's just what I was watching. Now, for what we did, you know, it's a lot of standing, right? So if standing's not your thing, like me, that can be a little difficult. But no, like for me, standing in one place for too long is actually worse than me walking around
Mm-hmm.
and doing stuff. So,
Oh, I agree.
I'd probably be now. There's plenty to do walking around and doing stuff, but just you're on your feet so long. Obviously, it's one of those types of things as you do in a production sense. But then it was like the chemistry behind everything. It was like there's kind of an art to how it's like, here's the ideal situation, right? The ideal situation is this grain comes in and the water's coming in and it just comes perfectly into the mass tun, right? But the art and the physicalness behind it is we have to spread this thing the entire time it's filling. So we're just constantly stirring and stirring and stirring and stirring. It's like you do not need a gym membership if you're working at a brewery, for sure. And so there becomes the art of, we found that this way works, and we found that, well, with this particular machine, that back area is a problem. So we're gonna move it away from that back area because that back area tends to, it's like that type of stuff. It's just like experience. You can't get that anywhere else. And if you go somewhere else, it's gonna be different. But just the understanding that it's not this rigid system that has to be done this particular way every time. Like there's certain things chemically that need to be hit, but it's an art on how to get you there. You know what I mean? How to get there is.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting. You can tell, at least for me, I let me preface this because your girlfriend's a chef. So when I say this, it's not to her level of things.
You better watch your mouth.
It's not to her level of things because I don't think I've ever witnessed her say something like this. But I think for like our level of like cooking, you can tell somebody who like not takes pride, but takes takes their cooking a little more serious. Like they have an approach to it. By the way, they do approach like either a grill or even like a stovetop, right? Or an oven, right? Where they like, oh, they're gonna go cook their meal, and they're like, I really fucking hate electrical stovetops because it's harder to do this. And when you hear somebody say something like that, I think there's a population of people that hear that and are just like, oh, shut the fuck up. But that is such a true thing. And what you just said with brewing, that's what it's like. I have found myself when I go into pizza shops, I identify pizza shops that I could or could not work in. And it's because the pizza shop I worked in had a very specific oven that I don't see a lot. And so I don't think that I could go in and walk into a pizza shop and think that I would do well right out of the gate. Because if it's one of those that I have to actually physically remember how long this thing has been in there, I'm screwed. Because ours was like a conveyor belt. Our top one tended to cook quicker than our bottom one, but that's because they were on top of each other, and so obviously the top one was hotter, like because we had all that like fucking heat from the bottom one like coming up there, and we threw our smaller pizzas in midway, like because you could open and like as the conveyor was going to either rescue something or put something in, so that's where you would put the like smaller pizzas in. You would do it halfway. But I would need a conveyor belt system in order to do a pizza right. It's not that I couldn't build you a pizza and like that kind of stuff. It's just when it came to cooking, I have a particular oven that I need to cook out of. Otherwise, I'm starting from scratch, and I couldn't, in good like conscious approach a pizza shop. Like, yeah, I've worked at a pizza shop for like 2 years. I know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, I'd be like, oh fuck, what do we do here? Why is my pizza on fire? It's a big bubble.
It's such a well, that's such a good analogy though, right? Because even though this is the first brew kettle that I've seen, right, and technically worked.
We have to finish this point, and then I'll get into this beer.
No. What beer do you have? That was that good.
All right. So this is a other half carbon copy collaboration called
Oh my
Conservas. It's
god.
a double dry
Oh,
hop.
it's that beer?
It's called Conservas. It's a double dry hopped pale ale.
Yeah.
New Zealand inspired hazy pale ale with our friends at Carbon Copy celebrating our love of tinned fish. Notes of zesty lime, sweet pineapple, and peach. Yeah, very interesting can art to say the least. This tinned fish thing. So, like tangent conversation. Their like thought process and like their branding, like while it's iconic and you know you're looking at other half like label, I will never quite understand. This is broccoli. This is Swiss cheese. This is blue crabs. I'm like,
Dude,
it's
it doesn't don't the tasting notes aren't anything like any of those things. It's just like we're gonna call this one broccoli.
We're gonna call this tinned fucking fish.
Well, so I like so this one I agree with because have you looked if you looked at Carbon Copy's menu, they have various tinned fishes on their food menu. So it's a very Carbon Copy thing, right?
Yeah.
And the minute you said tinned fish, it's like, oh, Carbon Copy, right? So because of other half's ridiculous branding strategies or naming strategies, it just makes perfect sense to call something tinned fish. Because if as soon as someone says if they're familiar with other half and they see it's like tinned fish, they're immediately gonna go, oh cool, another other half. They're gonna go, tinned fish. Is there like something, you know what I mean? Because broccoli, cheddar broccoli. I think there's one called cauliflower. Like, you know what I mean? It's just random stuff. So cabbage. So, I think this collab, like the collab works in the paradigm of other half's ridiculous branding.
What I will say in terms of this wonderful beverage here, if you did not see my face,
and they have.
Yeah. Pale ales have this tendency of, not tendency, but they have the potential to just have a flat floor where, I won't go as far to say that pale ales lack flavor. I just feel like a lot of times where you're going to get your flavor first is that frontal note when it first hits your tongue. You get hit with the flavor. And then where they sometimes fall short, is that carry through of flavor. It's like, oh, I taste all the notes and now it's watery of those notes.
Yeah, it's almost like removing the word India removes all of the depth of flavor.
And this is, bam, you're hit with flavor. Bam, the flavor continues to follow through. But what you're used to here is a little bit of booziness or that residual effect of having a higher ABV sitting around and lingering, where this does not. You don't get any of that, like, what's it, acetone? I don't even know like what to actually describe it as. Like ethanol-y, like sometimes flavors.
Acetone? At like nail polish remover?
Yeah. No, that's what that's what I meant.
That's what you were going for, nail polish remover?
Yeah. Alcohol. No, there's
Well,
that like
to be fair,
uncomfortable.
acetone is technically, I don't think acetone's in that. See, now I have to look it up, as you mentioned,
Neither
but
here nor there. What
acetone's
what
not an
what you get is this
alcohol.
like lingering alcohol-y flavor, or like this lingering alcohol effect, and that doesn't exist here. When we're talking about the Love City beer, when we were talking about the Smooth Tempo, uh, this one sits about 0.8, almost like a whole percent higher in ABV, but I actually think is an easier drinking beer all day. You there?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, where'd you go, Chris? Um, so I haven't necessarily planned for a situation where Chris kind of just disappears, and so you are seeing two of me. I should really make another scene in case this ever happens again, because I am not a crook. So we're hopefully gonna get Chris back in here. Um, but overall, this was a beer that I saw, like that we had actually over that Juneteenth weekend discussed of coming to be a thing soon. We saw on their Instagram channel that they were working on this beer. So hopefully by tomorrow morning, if you're watching this actually live, you're going to see an episode with Love City, with Carbon Copy, talking about the whole process of them coming in. So Chris should be back in soon. But the reason why I wanted to jump out and try it, I really want to promote it. So obviously, if you're in the Philly area or if you have access to Philly area beer, we really want you to be trying Love City. We really want you to be trying Other Half. So by the end of July, you should be seeing our beer. But right now, there is this collaboration that you should definitely check out, especially since it's 4th of July weekend coming up. Take some time, come out to Philly, check out Carbon Copy, check out Other Half. Carbon Copy's actually also doing a collaboration with two locals that is available at their West Philly location, and they have a pop-up South Philly location. If you're familiar with Separatist, you would be familiar with their South Philly location because there's some issues with Separatist at the moment. Anywho, Chris, welcome back. Are you here?
I heard it's separatist.
Yeah, that's
Are
where
we in?
that's where
Are we good?
Carbon Copy's pop up is.
Oh, what are we separating from, huh?
We're separating from my reaction to the Carbon Copy beer, which I would give a solid 4.75 as Connor licks himself.
Okay.
Chris?
Dude, this computer needs to fucking go, man. It is it is literally not. Oh my God. Are you fucking serious?
If you're watching this and you want to send a donation for some new equipment, please feel free. But going back into the, as we're working through these difficulties, going back to the what you call it, Brew Day. Very collaborative. One of the biggest things that we took away, I think, was how hands-on. I guess for the type of collaboration we did, us being hands-on was really beneficial. It allowed other people to continue on with the day, what I was talking with Chris on this was about how all of the hands at play were working, and because of us being hands-on with the experience to the degree that we were, as well as that we could be, it did allow for other things to happen. So while it was an exhausting day for us, especially learning a lot of this for the first time for essentially an 8-hour day, it did allow some of the other brewers to work on other beer where historically in other collaborations, it might be all hands on deck for one beer. Being kind of aware with how a brew day should work and seeing how much could be done cross like batches and barrels. You're working on adding new iterations of things into the fermentation tanks versus into like the mash or everything like that. Again, still working on terms and shit and understanding of things. It was really cool to see that and even hear from the people that we didn't get to really work with hands-on during the day, but we got to spend some time and get to know afterwards and see and hear their appreciation for us being as hands-on as we were. For me, it's definitely a process and a thing I want to continue to do, because I know I was dead tired once this day was done. Just struggled, and I didn't even have to drive home like Chris and Alyssa did separately. But I think with a better understanding, especially at a place like Love City, if we ever get the opportunity to continue on with another collaboration, we will have a better understanding of how the process there works, which, again, going back to that pizza analogy, really will help just move forward and jump back into the flow of things. So I'm really excited for that element, because that's where I think you really start to grasp things. I'm not I'm not a visual learner. I'm not an auditory learner. In those definitions, I'm that kinesthetic learner where I have to get in there and do it over and over again. And if you saw some of the pictures that we posted, there's pictures of Chris just locked in with Hannah, learning a little bit more of the science element of things. And I told him, I was just like, yo, you're gonna have to like lock in and retain this, because that's not where it's gonna make sense for me. But seeing the process of it, or understanding just like the costs of the day, just like what is having us in. I'm sure we slowed down things a little bit. What does this all look like? What does a brew cost initially? The special things that are required for our specific beverage. What does that look like? And then I'm really interested in seeing numbers once it comes time to the festival, when it comes time for actual distribution of things. When that last drop of our beer is done, what does profit look like? Is there profit? So that's really the fascinating element for me, and what I'm really trying to understand. Craft. There's so much going on with craft beer at the moment, and different trends. Something that I definitely want to get into a conversation with Chris in terms of, if you saw on our story, or particularly my story, what is the driving thing at a brewery, right? What are you looking for in a brewery? Are you looking for beer? Is that the most important part of the experience? Are you looking for the food? Is that the most important part of the experience? Is it the vibes, or is it the like non-alcoholic options? Because I only had 4 options to put in there. Because I was listening to a Vine Pair podcast about the kind of like the demise of Anchor, especially when Sapporo or whatever, the Japanese-based beverage company that bought up Stone as well, and the negative effects of being bought up by them and how that's affected that company, and the real conversation about food being the driving force of breweries, and food being the most important element. And so I really wanted to get a good understanding of how that actually affects numbers and everything. So Lost Lager, which is a almost like a research beer historian duo, dropped into the DMs and had a really good conversation about sales and how those numbers are portrayed. Chris and I will always have that stance of, I mean, it's statistics. It's Bill Burr. Go to imright.com and find the right data to back your point. And that tends to be the case here as well, unfortunately. So it's a very interesting conversation. It's a very interesting problem to have. So I just got a message from Chris. We're gonna end this live a little, which isn't premature. It's 8:00. It's about, oh, Chris is jumping in on his phone. Hi. You look great, by the way. Can you tilt your phone to the side?
All right.
What if you
Can
do
I hear-
this?
Do this?
You hush your mouth.
The struggle continues. Dude, I got the most lemon laptop that's ever lemoned. Like, this laptop has had issues with its battery at the very least from the very beginning. I have no idea what's going on with this thing. It's like, it's not even recognizing the internet at this point, which is completely working because I'm on the Wi-Fi right now. So I'll have to figure something out.
So I guess, just to kind of wrap this intriguing live up, I kind of just want to, anything that you didn't get to share, anything that like really like stood out. I have another thing I want to bring up to you, to kind of be like the ending question that's unrelated to our particular brew day. But I really do want to hear what your experience here was. We got to experience this together with Alyssa. But I really want to see what you took away. We were so tired at the end of it that we didn't really discuss our experience. I was just more like, get home safe.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And then we then attempted to get home safe.
You did get home safe. You didn't attempt. You got home safe.
This is true. And then proceeded to order Chinese.
Oh, that sounds so good.
It was amazing. It was amazing. So good.
I like blew my budget. Like I can't get Chinese for like 2 weeks, but anyway.
You blew your bi-weekly Chinese budget already?
I just blew my budget bi-weekly already, and I got paid yesterday.
Damn, son. Where'd you find all that? No. Yeah, I think so. It was funny because we were talking, we're talking about trying to recount the brew day and the details of a lot of the stuff we were looking at. And, what I was intrigued by obviously was all of the process equipment, the valves, the control equipment, what is this for? Oh, okay, what is this doing? The chemistry behind it, right? The fact that you have to, this is what our pH is supposed to be. We got to keep it there. How do you correct the pH if it's off, right? That type of stuff was the interesting stuff to me. And that's the stuff I really gravitated towards getting answers on at the time, and then like the gravity stuff that they were doing, to check to see where it's at, periodically, the temperature monitors and making sure it's at the correct temperature. And kind of like we were talking about before with, oh, this kettle runs a little hot, or we can only get it to about this temperature is about a good temperature for this kettle. You know what I mean? Like that type of stuff. All of that was so interesting. How do you transfer it, from the kettle to the fermenter outside of what we would do, which is take a pot and throw it in an ice bath for half an hour. according to the directions, but actually closer to like 45 minutes to an hour till it's cold enough, and then just dumping it into a glass jar, basically.
Look, the
You know,
stupid shit that I would do to get that shit cold.
bro, it was like the first time I did it, it was over an hour. I was like, this is
The
ridiculous.
first time I did it, it wasn't until I got to the cooling process that I realized I never bought ice.
What were you gonna do? Blow on it?
Cold water was running. I got the ice that I had. I found some ice packs that I had and threw that shit in there.
Oh my god!
Thankfully, that like it was that basement that ran at like 40 degrees all year round. So
you were good to go, and it was June, and you were in a long sleeve, probably.
yeah, like it was always awful down there in terms of like how frigid it was. So
You love to see it. Well, God, you don't love to be it, but you love to see it. Yeah, so like that's the type of stuff I was really interested in. I didn't bring something to write notes on, which I think we had both like alluded to doing potentially, but I'm kind of glad we didn't for this because it was so much that I feel like if we had gone in there with a pen and a pad to write things down, we would have been spending our whole time writing things down instead of just experiencing it. And I just wanted to experience it. So that's kind of where I landed on that.
Yeah,
I think
I
if we were to
feel
do
like-
this again the next time, definitely bring a pen and pad, note differences between systems, that type of thing.
I feel like next time I definitely would have felt more comfortable. Like, all right, cool. Like knowing the process already was like, all right, and kind of grasping where we should have been. But I think like next time it would be easy. We're like, yeah, you know, I want to explore because we didn't do too much of the grain build and everything like that. I wanted to explore that a little more. That would have been where I would.
The actual recipe portion of it, like we want to make this much beer. Okay, what are the raw materials we need? Mm-hmm. How do we determine how much hops we need? How do we determine when we need to drop the hops? Why do we go with this much sugar to get this much ABV? That type of stuff. Why do we determine the type of grain? Getting into minutia, that type of thing.
Yeah, and I think what was cool is Hannah has that mind that she just like saw it, knew where we would go, and again, Kevin being the dad he is, which I don't think he is, was able to come in like, oh yeah, we could do it that way, but actually this is gonna make the process a little quicker. Just even talking about the yeast really was a big conversation. It was just like, oh, we could have like actually like cultivated the yeast and like grown it almost, right? Versus like the blocks that they got, right? Like the stuff that was like already like worked up to this certain point, which was the equivalent of saving like a couple grand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say thousands of dollars. And that's the other thing, right? There's that business side of it of, oh, it's not a hobby. We need to make a profit, and also we need the money to spend to make the stuff happen. And oh, we're making so much of it that it's up in that thousands of dollars range just to make a beer. And you kind of lose track of that in the moment, right? Like, I didn't think about that until he mentioned it. Oh, shit, yeah, this beer is costing thousands of dollars. This is kind of a big deal, right? So
yeah, it was easily like what, over $5,000 to produce.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not even include. That's just like raw materials. That's not. You include like
the label is more expensive than normal. Like you're talking about like what would potentially be like 7 cents to about 22 cents, like
right, the labeling
for labeling. So that cost alone was, again, I don't remember what we're looking at in like cans, but just looking at that kind of comparison, like it's going to be enough cans that, what is that? 7 to 22 is that 15-cent difference? That means nothing when I'm like buying a beer.
Right. but it does make the price of a 4-pack go up a little more.
Right.
That just adds. Think about that. So 15 cents a can. If you were to add that, so that we're looking at an extra 60 cents per 4-pack of cans just on the label alone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's almost $1 more for a 6-pack, for a 4-pack. Just based on, if it's a 6-pack, it's even more than $1 just for the cans, just not even dealing with the beer that's inherently going to be more expensive because of higher ABV.
And so like a simple marketing thing that's like very like rudimentary, like very like simple understanding, right? You're willing to pay 99 cents for something versus $1 for something, right? Because that's 3 digits versus 2 digits, right? You're more likely to pay $19 for a service versus $20. This is why we see, especially at gas stations, we see things put at like $3.49 or rather than like $3.50, or like when gas was up at like $4, the $3.99 gas seemed a lot better than the $4 gas, right?
It's $3.99.
99. Yeah. Right. But that becomes that 1 penny or that 100th of a penny actually ends up mattering when you think about the marketing and the psychological and
the perception, right?
Perception of it, because a beer that would have sat at maybe a $19 mark, right, for a 4-pack, with the 7-cent label, is now in the 20 range,
and it looks a lot different.
And that could be the difference between, and not only is it in the 20 range, but it's not an IPA. It's a barley wine. It's going to be a higher ABV. I don't know if
it is a Manhattan inspired strong ale.
But all of these things that go into that are actually really like intriguing, and I think it goes to show how influential some beers can be when we're buying. We were buying Other Half for $30. Like,
it's even like, at least out here, it's exorbitant the amount of money Other Half wants for a 4-pack.
It's like $17.
You know how cheap that is for Other Half? Like out here, it's like that golden lager or golden ale, whichever one it is that they have, that they kind of push out. That's like $15, $16. Everything else is 20 or 20 to 30 plus.
Yeah.
Out here. So, it really makes a difference.
It does. So is there anything else that you would like to specifically talk about when it came to our brew day, or just like your observations from all of that?
Yeah, I would I like generally how I saw the business being run, and that the way that was working, to go behind the veil a little bit and see how that worked, the way they did it, I see a blueprint for what we would want to do. It's in terms of everyone's coming in, everyone is commingling with each other, everyone is has a hand in things, they're there at their time to work, and all departments, for lack of a better word, are kind of doing their own thing but together, right? And the owners are kind of involved in all facets of the process in a way that isn't overbearing, but is guiding and kind of trusting the people that they've hired to do the work that they know that they can do, and just being there to supervise for, you need a hand here. Do you need a solution to a problem that's quick? Maybe I know something, or just physically doing some work that's going to need to be done because of the holiday, you know? Those types of things, I really, I think I gained a lot of respect for the way that they run the business and the way that things were happening. It was fun, it was relaxed, it was casual. It didn't seem, it didn't seem tense, right? The entire operation just it didn't seem like there was a tension between like ownership and the brewing staff or any of that. Is like all intermingling, doing your own thing
Yeah.
at the same time, and it was just everything was just working,
Right.
you know.
So like the nice part was like there was coffee, there was donuts, like obviously like not delusional to the fact that the donut element isn't a day in day out, thing. The pizza that they got, the wings that they got isn't a constant thing. Like your expectation is to bring your own shit, right? Which is fine, especially at the end when you're getting paid in beer, right? Like that point's not lost on me. I think working at a brewery too, though, was there is a distinct difference where the previous brewery that I was at, yeah, you got like your shift beer. Your shift beer only really covered up to a certain amount. You're not
What?
technically like I should have only had like a shift beer, right? Like it was, and I got a beer.
Not a case of shift beers.
Huh?
Not a case worth of shift beers.
It was like we went in just to have a meeting with the driving force of Barrel and Flow. Walked away with like a weekend supply of beer that we destroyed. We brew, walk away with beer. We had the beer at the end of it. Even today, when I went in to pick up beer for today's episode, went to pay for my beer, and like my first beer that I drank there, covered by Britt. My second day, there's this other guy named Kevin that works there, but he was on vacation. Covered my second beer. It's one of those things. I finally was actually able to pay for a 4-pack and walk away, right? Like,
yeah, isn't that the thing, right? It's like you're fighting to just compensate them for something.
Yeah, Britt looks at me and she goes, "You're never paying," and I'm just like, "Let me pay. I don't carry cash. I'm not walking away and tipping your bartenders in cash."
Yeah, so I need a transaction so that I can tip.
If you don't let me pay something, they're never getting paid. Yeah, but I assure them that they're getting paid pretty well by that ownership. But it's a very interesting atmosphere when it comes to all of that. Very by the book, where you're not drinking during that whole process. Like I think that's something that stands out to me. Not that like I think a lot of breweries are like fucking getting shit faced as they're doing while they're like stuff. You're still handling like heavy machinery, but I think
there's an obvious deference to safety and
whether or not I think my thing is with them, whether or not they are, their intention and their goal is always to do the right thing, to be the next, not even the next driving step to like equality on things and to being the most inclusive thing for them, but they are always trying to just do better. I'm not going to be somebody that's going to sit here and say like, oh, Love City has it all figured out. I think that wouldn't be fair to them or us, because that's kind of what we are in a situation to do, in a position to do, is to call out stuff when we see it. So I'm not going to say that they have everything figured out, but I will say that from what I've seen with breweries, they're one of the most intentionally like, okay, we see this, we're identifying it, what can we do, how can we implement that here? And so like with the war program, like with sexual assault, like and all that kind of like harassment and stuff, I think they have been a really big driving factor. I think they do collaborations in a way that is different than like even Other Half, right? Where we see Other Half get a shit ton of collaborations, but like I don't see it happening a lot on the same side of like LGBT rights or like I'm sure Other Half's going to be there for a Barrel and Flow collaboration, but it just doesn't seem to have the same gravitas, like where.
Yeah, well, it ain't gonna have as much gravity as this beer we're doing now.
Ooh-wee.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think I kind of touched on it earlier with the fact that it kind of felt like business as usual, even though it's a collaboration beer day, which is by all accounts an abnormal day in the schedule of the brewery. So that kind of tells me that clearly, they're used to doing the collaborations, they're used to doing these types of things, and even in our talks about the business side of the collaboration, I think what the sense that I got is clearly, this is something that they do quite often, and they're very experienced in. So it's a big part of what they do, and I appreciate that. And it was just a blast. We have a beer fermenting, and it's going to be ready at some point within the next month to taste. And it's going to be crazy. And the thing is, like, what we tasted wasn't even like the half of it, obviously, right?
We're waiting on the other half.
The other half is going to be amazing, right? If it's not amazing, this episode never happened. Anything I said to anyone these past couple weeks, it did not happen.
If it's bad, it was their fault.
Anything collaboration beer? What we didn't. I've never even heard of this. I've never even heard of Love. No, never even heard of Alternative Blacks. Who's alternative?
Everything just goes.
Yeah, alternative who? Yeah, no. I had a softball game yesterday, and I was hyping up the collaboration to the people on the softball team. Just I'm very proud that we've done this and that we were a part of it, as small as we think it is. We were at the very least reassured that it was much larger than other people that were in our shoes in the past, and I take pride in that. And once again, I'm sure you do too. So, really excited to be pouring this beer. Really excited to get like the can art finalized and seen, and just having that first filled can. Just so excited.
I think I hit the point now where being who I am, there's just acquaintances that I run into, right? Like it's not that I have like a lot of like friendships. It's just like
it's just being who I am,
I'm bound to like just walk down the street and be like, hey. And
yes, you are.
I've never been that person, but like, well, I have a podcast, by the way, right? That's not something that I get into a lot. But I'm at the point where now that we're at the final stages of this, as like I'm ready to like as I run into those people, hey, wait, like, are you in the craft beer by any chance? Because you should watch out. Like, I have a beer coming up.
Boy, howdy.
Right. Because I really do, like, that's the promise I think that we came to Love City with, was we can hype the shit out of this. And that's where I really want to deliver. I don't think we've had much of an expectation on our side for stuff, but that's where I want to deliver. I want to be like, if you brew it, they will come.
Yeah. No, I agree. I really want to see every single last one of these cans, every single last ounce of these kegs be poured out, sold out.
Yeah.
I want it all gone, and this is the perfect kind of jumping off point for us to even introduce people to Love City, especially me. Maybe not so much you because you're in Philly,
Mm-hmm.
where people might have just heard or experienced Love City already. Where I'm kind of a little further out, and so I'm just like, hey, Love City, when you're ever in Philly, check out Love City.
Right.
We got this beer coming. Oh, you got this beer coming. Yeah, but like they have Eraserhood, which is an amazing IPA, and occasionally they bring out double Eraserhood, and it's like the lines around the block, you know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a nice jumping off point to really sell it, and I'm hoping that that effort actually is fruitful, so that, like you said, it kind of we kind of feel we have like that imposter syndrome, right? Where it's kind of like, do we really belong here? Is this really happening? This type of thing. And I think that would be really cool in terms of just maybe like a little bit of validation of, okay, like we can bring something to the table here.
Right, where people are just kind of excited. Um, you brought up Love City and not like being like obviously close to Philadelphia, and obviously which means close to the Love City. Um, but I think Love City has a very distinct kind of vibe. So I don't know if you saw my story earlier today, but what are did you?
I did not.
Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna look at the results.
Perfect.
I put it on Twitter and Instagram, and at first I had two different like leading answers, but the question was, what is the most important thing to you when you go to a brewery? Like, what really makes the impression for you? What is the deciding factor? Is it the beer? Is it the food? Is it the vibe or the like the experience as a whole, the atmosphere, or is it the non-alcoholic options? What is the like leading drive to how
Okay.
you rate a place? Because they all contribute, right? You want something that has
So
all of
yeah,
those.
I think all out of the items you listed, I was kind of thinking there are things that would make me want to return, and that would be like there are things that are like if zero was just I'm indifferent on returning
Right.
based on this experience. There are things that I think start at either zero and go up, and start at zero and go down,
Right.
or things that even if it was at its very worst is only like a -5 versus like a -20 or something, right? So I think oddly enough, for me, the beer is a secondary thing in terms of returning to a location. And here's why. I think the vibe, as you, as, that was like the first thing you said, right? I think the vibe to me is most important. Am I feeling comfortable here? Do I like the people that work there? Do I feel welcome? Um, those types of things. I'll go back to a place if I like
Mm.
who's working there and I like the vibe, even if the beer's okay. It's not really mind blowing, but it's okay. But if the vibe is there for that location, I'm gonna just return to that place because it's not always just about the beer. It's not always just about the drinking a beer. It's all the things that come along with it that I think we enjoy, right? The camaraderie.
Yes, I agree. Right. Um, so I guess maybe there was a
Or was that not
little
the
bit
question?
of a issue in how like I'm presenting this. Um, this isn't. I guess the question isn't about like a returning experience. It's about like you're gonna visit a place for like one and only time. Like say you're down in like fucking
All right.
Texas for some reason. And it's gonna be your one and only time there. How do you like truly like say okay if you're either a local or if you're somebody that is just passing by this place, this is a place that you have to check out. And the number one reason is because it's a really good experience or because it's really good beer and you need to try this beer. It's only available here. Try this beer.
Mm-hmm.
Like what is the most important thing about your initial experience at a place?
So that's the thing. Like, it's kind of in one sense, it is still that same answer of
Yeah.
when I go to a place for the first time, it's what is it that makes me want to come back to this place for me? Because I love going to new places, right? But there is something nice about a familiar place that you've been before, but you've had a good experience at and can return when you're not really feeling being adventurous or going out of place. So like I think if I were to say to someone else recommending, oh, I'm going to X city, what should I check out? I do think that the atmosphere and the vibe is number one in that, in terms of check out a place while you're down visiting on vacation or visiting for something you want to let off some steam and go somewhere for like leisure. Like,
Right.
I feel like that's the most important thing to me.
So I think you're absolutely right. I think, it's there's a relevance in the person you're talking to. If it's another craft
Yeah.
beer like fucking Hophead really, um, then obviously what I'm gonna say is like, hey, this place has the best beer. If it's a friend of the family that I know enjoys craft beer, I say, hey, you're gonna have a really good time in here because it's an amazing experience and the beer is actually pretty good. So I think there is that like
I mean,
environment.
you have that tour guide gene in you that you haven't fully tapped into. So I already know that works for you. I like that's actually exactly how I would approach it, right? It's based on the person,
Right.
and it's like, okay, this is what they prioritize. This is what I would recommend.
So
But I prioritize personally the experience first,
and
then the beer.
I think I realized through your conversation that yeah, the experience as a whole is the biggest part. Was this a good experience? And that goes into good people or just like a good vibe in general. Like, okay, cool, that can make up for half decent beer, but
Yeah.
there's really good food. And like, I think the atmosphere and everything just encapsulates all of it. The beer is the driving force. That's what I'm really out there for, but that's personal. That's someone that's like, looking at this Italian Pilsner and really identifying like, was this because I didn't feel like having an IPA, or is this because I'm interested in seeing what they do by an Italian Pilsner, and was this actually crafted well? And that's not how everyone approaches it, right?
But okay. But my counterpoint to that though here is the fact that, okay, so maybe after the 10th time you visited the place, you can now go, all right, this place is getting a little old. But if it's just off of like one or two beers, they have a catalog, right? And they might have, as we've learned, especially with like breweries all over the place, they're going to do maybe one or two beers very, very well, and the other stuff might not be great.
Right.
But if the vibe is there, maybe you go back more so, and you'll just, okay, I'm gonna get this because I know it's good. And I think,
okay. So you're absolutely right. And what I think is absolutely funny about this,
absolutely,
there's a particular answer that we didn't even really touch, and that answer was the basis of the question, because I was listening to, as I sent you, this Vine Pair podcast. It was about the demise of Anchor Brewing Company. I guess Sapporo owns them as well. So if you're familiar with that, that's the same like Japanese company that owns
the
Stone, so it
Japanese
never sell
Canadian
out,
company,
right?
the Japanese Canadian company.
Yeah, and but so whatever. Vine Pair was really just digging into like them not doing well and the reason why they're not doing well and everything. And the big point that they made during this whole podcast episode was the fact that the most important element of a craft brewery now is good food. It has to be good food, otherwise you won't succeed. Which I think just kills Jersey.
But yeah, then so in Jersey, well, interestingly enough, I feel like this is an entire discussion that we need to have on like another live
It,
because I almost, in a way, I kind of see their point,
but
and I might want to, we might want to argue this.
but to the point, I think experience trumps food. I feel food is part of experience, but it's not a big enough point to make or break the brewery in itself. Now, if you're going out there, it's your one and only stop, and food has to be a part of it. Yeah, I see how that's a make or break of going to a place. But if it's just a hop along the road and they just happen not to have like if it's Punch Buggy, right? Like Punch Buggy doesn't have fucking good food, but the experience is good because it's good people, decent beer. Um, Experience isn't much outside of the fact that it's just good people.
Yeah,
But
and yeah, and I wanted to preface that I wanted to qualify that too, right? When we, at least me, and I think you'd agree, right? It's in your punch buggy example. When I say great experience, I'm not looking for this grandiose locale that has all of these amenities attached to it. It has this crazy outdoor deck, right? Or it has
because that's
all these like
personable.
the crazy bar, and it's all this money's being put into how it looked. Like that's not what I mean.
Yeah,
That's all great and all, but like I just want like vibe. I want to go into a place and it's just like, oh, the bartenders are cool people that can just have a conversation. You can sit down and relax and just be in the moment with those people or with the people you came with, and you don't feel rushed. You don't feel claustrophobic. You don't feel
and that's
like
interesting
there's something being taken away from you in being there.
because why was Mike's Tavern on a night where there was a band and it was literally packed to capacity less claustrophobic than going to Captain's Cove, which was outside and could handle that amount of people? Why was Mike's a more viable option?
Because there's a vibe there, right? Uh, there's a personality there versus a big place that's just, it's almost like it's manufactured towards something that isn't personal, right? And it is, but therein lies the thing. What are you looking for in an experience too? So this is what we're looking for.
Right.
If what you're looking for is that type of thing, then you might find another place viable. But then that kind of rounds back to the point of, if it's in terms of us, I think we agree that it's about being more, not more of a chill place. It can still be a busy place, but it needs to be more personable,
Yeah.
or more amenable to interpersonal interaction versus like a party vibe or something, or just overall loud, busy
Right.
with nothing else behind it.
So, yeah, I agree. This is a conversation that can be expanded upon. I think this is a good like other live topic. Um,
Yeah,
that we can build other things too. I think because we've talked about it right now, it's a subtopic in the larger episode, but I think it's definitely worth exploring. Um, because that's really what we're trying to identify, and we're trying to help further the industry along, right? We're really trying to hone in on like going back to our anchors of beer and the Voodoos, the Iron Hills, and everything, right?
yeah,
What's the issue? What issue lies within Iron Hill is because it has such a name, almost ubiquitous to like Applebee's, right? Where I'm not expecting going to Applebee's and having my waiter like tell me why this meal is like, oh, if you really enjoy pasta, this is going to be the meal because we get our grain from blah blah blah. Like, they're never going to do that. And I don't think Iron Hill is really ever going to like do that either. I think sometimes the workers aren't necessarily like hopheads again, versus like going into somewhere like Love City, Punch Buggy, you know, at a point, going into some places like Other Half, and back in the day, going back into like Trillium, like Treehouse back in the day. I can only imagine those people just being truly crazy about the process of the shit, right? And for certain people, that's an experience. We talked about on the anchors that like what's nice of Iron Hills and stuff, I know what to expect. So it's a give and take, right? You want a craft experience with a reliance, right? Like what's nice of I went and explored in this area, and while I had fun checking out these breweries, at this point I wanted to like enjoy a meal. I know that this place is gonna have good food. I know that they're always gonna have this beer on the menu that I particularly enjoy, and I know that it's gonna actually come out fresh. I will go to Iron Hill tonight. Fucking sad.
Yeah, no, you're right. Iron Hill is definitely the Applebee's of breweries, and we can name the live that. No,
Yeah.
let's get a shirt. Iron Hill is the Applebee's of breweries. They're just everywhere. It's your neighborhood brewery, right? But no, you're right. You go to places because you're in a mood for a certain thing. So what is that thing that you're looking for?
I'll tell you this right now.
Huh?
Applebee's, I'm going to Applebee's for the 3 cheese chicken penne. Fucking love that shit.
No. See, what we're not going to do is go to Applebee's for some fucking Italian pasta.
No, I am telling you that 3 cheese chicken penne is fucking delicious.
All right. Well, you know, it's been a good run for this podcast.
To an Applebee's standard, though. Like, to an Applebee's quality of things, though.
Now it's to an Applebee's quality. You insult my heritage with this 3 cheese chicken penne.
Penne! No, but that's what I mean. Like, again, to an Iron Hill quality, to a Victory quality of beer, I know I can go there and get a fresh Dirt Wolf or Golden Monkey. I don't have to worry about like
same every time.
I don't have to worry about it being fucking like they didn't clean the lines right. I've had those beers, which I know I love. I know I love those beers. I've had those beers places, and I was disgusted with the glass that I had, and there was no way, because of how like macro they are now, there was no way Victory just fucked up a batch.
You're right. Yeah, it goes back to it's the same. You're right with Applebee's. Like, obviously, it's just like there is variation, but generally, you know what to expect, and that's why chain restaurants survive, right? That's why they're better than a lot of options when you're not looking for anything in particular other than just a safe place to go get something that you're craving, because you know what to expect. And by all accounts, even the macro brews that you could consider like the McDonald's version of a beer, right? It's still the same thing. You know what to expect at the end of the day. So there is something to be said about that. And so I think Iron Hill is one of those like happy medium type places, or a Victory is one of those happy medium type places where it's like they still make really good stuff, but you know it's going to be consistent, and they're never going to push the envelope to the point where it's going to be ridiculously good, but you can't go wrong. You see the Victory tab, you get it, right? If you're not in the mood for being adventurous, or if you're at a place that has not the best of options, there's probably a Victory on tap, and you know you can always go with that. So it's like the old faithful type of deal. And I think there's great value in that, particularly for people who like enjoy beer, but like you said, aren't hopheads, right? Because sometimes we think I think we get lost, and I think a lot of craft beer people get lost in the minutia of craft beer, and I think that's why sometimes we overlook lagers, for example, because it's not you can't just throw this unique hop into it and it just be good. It has to actually be good, and it can be very simple sometimes. And I think we've come around to pilsners because of that, right? So it's a lot of what are you feeling in the moment type of deal.
I agree.
And
Yeah.
I think for me, once again, though, it always goes back to the experience based on what I'm in the mood for, I guess, will determine which of the other things is going to contribute to the overall experience of the place. But at the end of the day, like, if the vibe sucks at a place, it doesn't matter how good the food is or how good the beer is. I'm just not going to even bother, right? So, yeah.
Heard. I think that was a perfect way to like wrap up this episode. I think that's another way of really promoting Love City. It's a really good vibe. There's never been a moment that I walked into Love City and been like, you know what, we fucked up. Let's go somewhere else. I've walked into other places, other breweries that I enjoyed, and just been like, you know what, this ain't it today. Victory is a good example of this just ain't it today. We're out. Like,
yeah.
And so just look at like. Check out the Vine Pair thing. We need to talk about it a little more. There's some things I want to talk to you personally about prior to getting into it. Maybe even after we close out the live for today. But super excited for Love City. If you haven't familiarized yourself with Love City yet, I do think they kind of have what most breweries have, a beer for everyone, right? They have that deep cut Pilsner. They have the Unity IPA. They have the Eraser Hood, which would be on your hazier sides. You have Sylvie Stout, right? Your oatmeal stout. So like they
You have
really,
lagers. You have that lime lager, which is perfect for the summer right now.
Right. So it's a beer you don't even have to throw a lime into. But they really do have they really do have those beers already like stacked up. That you can get introduced to craft beer in a very approachable way. I think Love City's, if there's a word to describe Love City, it's approachable.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. So can't hype it up enough. Gonna try to really promote the shit out of us, but yeah, it's coming quick. We're about a month and a half away from this really being like a big thing for us, which is terrifying. So,
yeah, isn't that some shit? We're and even less than that. Like next week, it's going to be a month and like a week until we're at Barrel and Flow.
Yeah. But I'm going to hold you after this call to talk to you about something. But until next time.
Connor! Sorry.
Peace.